Ahead of the next general election, Singapore is looking at tweaking regulations to control AI deepfake content. Now, Digital Development and Information Minister Josephine had used the example of South Korea's temporary ban on AI deepfakes during its elections. On more of the options out there, I'm joined by Jeffrey Kok, VP of Solution Engineers for Asia Pacific and Japan at CyberArk. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us. Now, we've heard there different people taking different paths to dealing with this. But first, in terms of the deepfakes, they're growing out there, and it's not our imagination. They're really getting proliferating. What do you think politicians and the electorate must be aware of when they are looking towards the elections coming up?
Thanks, Jill. Thanks for having me here. So I think first thing is to recognize the reality. The proliferation is there. What used to take days and complex equipment to generate deepfakes can be done in minutes in the cloud. So I think first recognition of the problem, as well as being able to establish official communication channels so that the constituents know that this is the official site, the official channels to receive information, and for them to very quickly address, so-called the fake deepfakes. And by clarifying that, rather than let it fester for days, to come and say that, look, we know the existence of this deepfake. That's not us. This is not legit.
Okay. So to acknowledge it, to be quite open about it. I mean, I get deepfakes of myself every day. Today, I had a particularly horrific one where I had a black eye and looked like a zombie, so I'm not sure what I was selling. But you can't actually block them, can you? You can't block or ban deepfakes at all.
It is practically impossible because deepfake is a big class of software that can run anywhere. It can run on a computer, it can run in the cloud. So it is impractical to try to block everyone. But I think there are mechanisms, for example, working with the leading social media platforms, think the Facebook, the YouTube of the world, so that they can highlight, right, if videos are potential deepfakes. So it raises the awareness of people watching it and reduces the propagation of those deepfakes.
Okay.
But stopping it altogether, blocking the whole class of software, not practical.
So as we talked earlier, you said some politicians in other countries are embracing them, okay? But, it's not what you think. Explain that to me. Explain what are the different stakeholders doing that you have observed in around the world.
So I think in the recent elections that just concluded in UK and India, so like in India, what an interesting thing was a politician actually embraced AI to use their own official deepfakes to communicate and reach out to the wider audience. And once you have a lot of correct or authentic deepfakes from the actual politicians, the audience over time can tell which are the ones that's legit, which are the ones that are real, and which are the ones that are more fake. So in a way, it is to embrace the technology and have more of the authentic voice in there, so people know how to spot the real from the fake.
So it's controlling the narrative. It's a numbers game?
Correct, it is. So imagine if you have a wider population that is spreading the authentic messages, the authentic so-called deepfakes, then it will drown out the voices of the fake ones, and it gets washed away and forgotten.
Right. So it's very different from the South Korean approach where they ban it. It's like almost like a complete opposite approach to it just before elections. Do you think that we should also be focusing on regulations and, targeting the ethical use of content more?
I think the use of deepfake, like any other technology, I will equate deepfake to be like a pen, right? It can be used to write good stories, it can be used to write fake stories that are bad. But we are not going to ban the pen, right? But we're going to regulate how narratives are being written, and so that the malicious acts, the malicious use of the technology has consequences, and that can be enforced. So that number one, it creates a deterrent. So for the folks that are trying to use this technology for harmful and malicious purposes, there is a potential for repercussion for these folks.
So you feel that regulation has a role to play. I just want to ask also about Is it easy to detect these deepfakes? I'm being asked to ask you, what is the technology behind that?
So there are two ways.
Yes.
Let's talk about the machine part.
Yes.
You can actually use AI to detect AI-generated content.
Yeah.
Right, and it's actually pretty common today. Like, for example, universities will use those technology to detect if someone's using, say, ChatGPT to write articles. So the same technology can be applied to detect what we call deepfake generated content. So once it's detected, you can potentially flag them as potential deepfake content. But there's also the wider part of educating the masses, educating the public, because ultimately the voice of the population, the community is the loudest. Because if everyone around you recognize that this is a fake and they're telling their parents, their grandparents that this is a fake, don't spread it, don't share it, then over time, the awareness goes up and there's less attention to these so-called fake deepfakes.
Okay, Jeffrey, appreciate your insight on this, especially as we draw nearer, perhaps to an election sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Jill.
Well, I've been speaking there with Jeffrey Kok, Vice President of Solution Engineers for Asia Pacific and Japan at CyberArk. Thank you once more.